With us now, Congressman Lynn Westmoreland, member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, what you and I commonly call the Intelligence Committee. Lynn, we thank you very much for your time. Welcome to America's Forum.
Thanks, JD. Thanks for having me. Good to hear from you.
Well, it's very good to have you on with us, and I'm going to take you to a story that was about, I guess, this time yesterday. Retired Major General Paul Vallely of Stand Up America was with us, and he just flat out said President Obama should be impeached following the release of emails tying a White House aide to those controversial Sunday morning talking points concerning Benghazi. Impeachment is a big step. Lynn, do you agree with General Vallely?
Well, I think, JD, you're exactly right. Impeachment is a big step, and I think that we have got to get some more information about these emails, because we think that, this information came as, let's say, you had Mr. Morrell, which testified that he basically changed the talking points. If you look at Ben Rhodes, who was on the list of distribution for the talking points being changed, and then I think, you can go to the State Department and look at, Kennedy or Cheryl Lamb to see if there's some type of conspiracy may not be the best word for it, but a putting together of how they can mold those talking points to fit what the president's statements have been about Al Qaeda and about the strength that they are, and really about our policy in Libya, because our policy in Libya was a failed policy.
Well, let's take this one step at a time, and I know you've been working on it in your role on the Intelligence Committee and also reviewing testimony to other congressional committees. We'll get to that in a second, but in terms of the revelation of what Judicial Watch has released, in your opinion, do the new emails show the White House was actively working to tie the attack to what is in essence fiction, the YouTube alleged anti-Islamic video? And you mentioned the name Ben Rhodes. Does it appear now that from the White House perspective, Mr. Rhodes is the principal culprit in this, or could it go higher?
I don't think he's the principal culprit in it, no. I think he happened to be on the email chain of the changes to the talking points. And in my opinion, Mike Morrell's a nice guy, but I think, after he changed the talking points, the White House didn't do anything but have to put the slant on how they wanted those talking points presented. And I think that's exactly what he did with Ambassador Rice. And, she had, I guess, access to all the information, but evidently she was just taking the lead from the White House and, went on those 5 TV shows, and it absolutely misled the American people, and I believe it was done strictly for political reasons because of the upcoming election.
Well, when politics takes center stage in this kind of situation, when Americans lost their lives, and then you have a situation now where at the press briefing yesterday, Jay Carney tried to defend these emails to reporters, saying they were not about Benghazi. Carney claiming they were about demonstrations elsewhere in the Muslim world. That is so at variance with the facts. Bottom line, Lynn Westmoreland, has the Obama administration completely lost all of its credibility?
Well, JD, let me ask you a common sense question. I'm just kind of a common sense guy. You've got Miss Rice going on all the Sunday news talk shows, and you just had 4 Americans get killed in an attack on the temporary mission facility in Benghazi. You've had the CIA annex attack, and you think she's going to go in there and be asked questions about what went on in Egypt? Give me a break. I mean, that was Benghazi was going to be the focus. And that's the reason, to me, they gave her those talking points, because so she could mislead the American people. Anybody that thought she was going to go in there and they were going to ask her about what happened in Yemen or Egypt or anywhere else, you know, they were not thinking good. And all the American people, I mean, you know, even today, almost 2 years afterwards, this is one of the main things we get asked. When we lose Americans, and especially our diplomats, you know, Americans want answers. And so Benghazi, they should have known that was going to be the subject talked about on all those talk shows.
Lynn Westmoreland, let me get into the inner workings of the House and your role chairing the Oversight Subcommittee on the full Intelligence Committee. Now, a few weeks ago, you went to Speaker Boehner, and you have been reviewing testimony. Correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, you and others on the committee have been reviewing testimony to other committees. Meantime, the sentiment continues to build, saying that there needs to be a select committee dealing exclusively with Benghazi. Now, I know you're working hard from your jurisdiction in terms of oversight. In essence, is your standing subcommittee the de facto Benghazi committee, or with so many members of the House Republican Conference calling for a select committee, where do you stand on that notion?
You know, J.D., I went to the Speaker, I guess it's been probably 2 months ago now, and I asked him if I could put together a group of members, no big committee chairs, from Foreign Affairs, Oversight, HASC, or the Armed Services Committee, and the House Intelligence. And so that's what we did. We, Trey Gowdy, well, I'm not going to name all the names, but anyway, there's about 8 of us. And 2 of them are special or prosecutors, former federal prosecutors. And so what we're going back is that, and you know, like you said, J.D., this thing is the inner workings of the House. You've got different jurisdictions for different committees. And so, you know, if you're on the Intelligence Committee, you don't really get to do the State Department or the DOD folks like you would if you were on HASP or Oversight or Foreign Affairs. And so we've gotten a lot of testimony. So what we're doing is that we're sitting down and going over all this testimony, seeing where the gaps are or where there's some holes, or seeing if there's some additional testimony or conflicts in people's testimony, depending on what committee they were in front of. The other thing is, if you do a select committee, you know, they're only good for one Congress. And so if the Speaker did a select committee right now, you know, you would have till, you know, January the 5th or whenever it is that the new Congress is going to come in. And J.D., you know that these select committees, there's a lot of TV time, a lot of interviews, and if you look at some of the committees that we've had in this country, the Warren Commission, the 9/11 Commission, and some of these other, you know, the Kenneth Starr, the Whitewater, I mean, you look at all that, and nobody really believes anything that came out of that.
So the bottom line is on this, and I just want to make sure I understand, essentially what you're saying is, Lynn, you have a broad portfolio to work with members of different standing committees in the House. You're reviewing the testimony right now. So far from the roar of the grease paint, the smell of the crowd, you're doing the work right now to point out inconsistencies in testimony that has already been given before committees, and that at least gives you a working point should the full House decide for a select committee at some point. But you're telling us that that's a situation where it would have a very short shelf life. The fact is, today being the first day of May, and you're looking at January of next year. So you're going to continue to do this work, and we appreciate that. One thing about it, Lynn, as you continue the work, promise to come back and keep us updated on what you're finding with this ad hoc group, okay?
Well, J.D., we will. And, you know, we've got members, and as you know, and probably as many of your listeners or watchers, people that are viewing know, you have to build a case, because I think that we know exactly what happened. It's getting the proof to prove what happened that has been the biggest undertaking. And I think you can see that Speaker Boehner came out, condemned the administration about the subpoenas. We are just getting information, J.D., that was subpoenaed from the State Department in October of 2012.
We understand that. That's why we'll keep an eye on this. Congressman Lynn Westmoreland of the House Intelligence Committee, we thank you for your time.